So, I'm just about to wait a little bit more for the other participants to join. Can you hear me? Can you? Oh, okay, fine. Okay, great. Okay, then maybe the others will join in a few minutes. So I'm just gonna start right now, and I'm going to share you my screen. Just give me a second. Okay, welcome to my presentation on LEA Online Literacy Education for Adults. My name is Jan Küster. I'm working as a scientific employee at the University of Bremen, and my primary role is being a software engineer in my working group. And today I'm going to talk about literacy education in Germany and how we gonna tackle functional illiteracy with digital solutions. So first, there is the project background. In 2010 or 2011, there was the LEO study that has been conducted from educational scientists from Hamburg, and it was a very shocking results. So what is the LEO study? They did a survey on low-skilled population, and they had a huge sample of 7,000 participants ranging 18 to 64. Also, they had a test sample with 1,400 participants with a lower educational background, so where the background was known, and the persons had to speak German good enough to participate in this survey. And this level 1, that is the lowest level that there are international surveys to assess literacy on adults in the whole world, and they have a certain threshold to the bottom, and everything that's below this threshold isn't even assessed in detail. And this survey is assessing competencies below this threshold in detail, and it's done in so-called alpha levels. And these alpha levels describe competencies from the lowest point where words cannot be expressed during reading and writing. So even simple words, that's the lowest level. This nearly total analphabet, total illiteracy status. Level 2 means single word can be expressed but not sentences. So reading the stop sign is possible. Reading a name is possible, and groups of words is possible, but full sentences, especially larger sentences, not possible. Neither reading nor writing. Level 3, short sentences can be expressed, but not texts. And up to this point, if a person has been detected being in one of those 3 levels, this person is considered functionally illiterate. Level 4 would be writing contains errors even for common words, but texts can be expressed in terms of reading and writing. So what is functionally illiterate? What is it to be functionally illiterate? First of all, these findings were shocking because I'm going first to talk about why these findings were shocking before going into what's functionally illiterate. There were 0.6% of the attendees of these 7,000 of the sample in level 1, 3.9 in level 2, 10% in level 3, 25.9% in level 4, and consider level 4 still being below the minimum threshold of what is assessed on the international studies. And if this is when you take into account that level 1 to level 3 is considered functionally illiterate, then it's 40.5% of all the participants. And when you scale that up to the population, then it's 7.5 million. And that was a very shocking finding, because we are considered, and we consider ourselves, an educated country where functional illiteracy should be not that issue, but actually it is. And now I'm going to talk about what is functional illiteracy. So the term function is important here because it's about using the functions of letters and words, and that it's not used with these persons. And when they can't use this function, they cannot function in society themselves, because reading, writing is a function that is required in many parts of society, in the workplace environment, especially. And other skills remain unused as well, because these people are maybe scared to reveal that they're functional illiterates. So they keep isolated when it comes to showing their skills. Doesn't mean they keep isolated themselves as a whole, but when it comes to showing and using skills that are related to their literacy, they remain rather isolated and don't come out with that. And if these skills are unused, they further decline. So in 2010, sorry, just give me one more second. I'm just okay, I'm back. So then from here, I just talk freely about how this is gonna tackle today. We have so-called Volkshochschulen, which are institutions of how could I say, this is like public schools for adults that can attend many courses. And there are also literacy courses, and they use a valid model that also has been developed during these times of the Leo study, and this model helps to assess these alpha levels, making a diagnostic. because it's very important to know the specific competency level of the person in order to have an effective training. And this can get very complicated, because if they do this pen and paper, and you have to, as a teacher, you have to evaluate all that stuff. You have to go through all your 10 to 20 participants, or how many in your classes. You have to do this assessment by pen and paper, and you have to do it with, mostly you have to do it with these persons together, because what if they can't read even the instructions correctly? Then you have a false negative error when they do a mistake because they didn't read the instruction well. So you have to do support, and then you do that one-on-one. It takes so much time. Then you need to evaluate all that, and then you need to count and calculate and estimate is the threshold reached and all that stuff. And this is something that you can automate very good. And we did that already in 2010, where we started O2LEA online Testumgebung for LEA, and LEA stands for Literacy Education for Adults. So, and it's a diagnostic software environment using the LEA universe and LEA competency model. It supports teachers of these literacy courses with diagnostics, as I already told you, and it's anonymous to use. So usually it's used within these courses, but there is neither an account or registration or anything required. So these persons just generate a code, they write down this code or get help from the teacher to write down this code. It's like five-letter code, and without any letters that could be misunderstood. So we don't have 5 and S, for example, because that could be easily mistaken, or O and 0. And when they do that, it's built on this valid and reliable competency model. So it's not something that somebody just came up with and then hope to see what's going on. So this is really based on something valid. And as I said, it's specifically built to assess these alpha levels, supporting teachers. And it was a great help. So we had many teachers using them, but the problem was it was published on Adobe Flash. And as you already know, during our development time, there was already the first step of Flash stat when Steve Jobs announced that iPhones don't execute Flash environments. But at that time, it was not a problem because browsers still supported it. So we were happy that it just ran. But then we knew that Flash support would die one day. And finally, in 2018, we got some funding again to port this to a modern web app using Meteor. Yay. Yeah. And this whole this port is part of an even greater project. So we not only wanted to port this diagnostics application, but we also had the idea to do something more. So the project we came up was LEA.online, where the diagnostics is ported, but we also wanted to have private ubiquitous learning on the mobile. So that we found that many people don't attend these courses. So when you see that you have this potential 7.5 million, and then you just have a few 10,000s attending these courses, then you have a big discrepancy. And being anonymous is one of these factors for this discrepancy. Because when you go to this course, people know who you are. People have seen your face. Even if it remains only in this course, there are other people seeing you going to the building, asking, oh, what are you doing today? And all that stuff. So these are all factors that can definitely push people back to go to these courses. So we thought, why not, if we have a valid model for assessing competencies, why not developing based on this model at least partially valid tasks for learning until we can validate the model. So, and that's what we're also doing in this project now. Because when you have a mobile application, everybody knows that you can do it at home, you can do it in the tram, you can do it anywhere you want, and at your time, when you are motivated, and when these factors like anonymity, being anonymous, is ensured. So that's one part, but we also wanted to have an anonymous course management for the teachers, because consider people doing these diagnostics and then they're doing a diagnostic 3 weeks later. How do we capture if the person had a progress, or if their skills remained the same, or if they even declined? We currently could do that in the application itself, but that would be just way too much for this application. So we thought, okay, why not just having an extra application for the teachers managing their course members, the IDs or the accounts for these course members. I say it's not really, it's an account, it's a Meteor account, but it's not an account in a way that it's associated to this person it's really anonymous. It's not just pseudonymized, and that allows them to track the progress not only for an individual but also for their classes, because for these teachers it's also important to have documentation on how their people progress and on which alpha levels these people are, because you guessed it, funding is involved depending on the progress and the alpha levels of the people. So this course management is crucial for the teachers as well. And what we also wanted to do is we wanted to improve the material, because on the one hand the material got older, and it was from 2010. The material got older. We also wanted to have additional material. So what we definitely want to have is some kind of editing place where we as a team can edit and update and improve and experiment with material for all these applications. So that's how Lea Online is structured. And today I'm going to show you one of the most advanced applications from we've developed in this project. That's the diagnostic app, and I'm going to do one cycle through the application as a hypothetical participant. Consider though it's all in German, because we're targeting only German functional illiterates, but I will explain everything what's going on there. So let's get going on the demo. So when you're starting this application, the first thing you see is that every text here is enriched with some kind of speaker button, and this speaker button is basically playing this whole text using the text-to-speech engine. I'm just switching to another browser because the text-to-speech engine on my development Firefox is not good. It's that's some different aspect we still have to tackle, but yeah, when I'm going to play these, it's like saying nothing, because I think I have to. So yeah. Nein. So it's basically the same voice in the Chrome browser. It's the same voice like on, for example, your Android devices. That's the Google Voice Germany. For us, it was really important to have every text being readable.
Herzlich willkommen bei tu.lea. Du kannst hier angeben, ob du bereits einen Test absolviert hast.
So it sounds very slow, but in the end, we really found that it was important to have this text reading, this text to speech, much slower than a literate person would perceive, because it's hard to perceive the text, what it's saying while reading it. You can also click on these single text text elements and can let the text-to-speech engine read this one. And this is really using this browser built-in text-to-speech standard. There are really caveats, so it's not 100% perfect, and we are working on training a model actually, but that's more like for the next project, because that's not so easy. We're training a model to create an own voice, because there are actually problems with reading some voices, with reading some words that are very work specific. And yeah, so that will be in the future that we improve on this text to speech. But for now, just let's continue. So it's basically on the starting page showing you the full Leo universe, and as you can see, all these people have some clothing from a work environment. It's because we're targeting adults in the workforce, and because for them that's the biggest pressure they know they can't have a real career because of their functional illiteracy, but at the same time they have to get a job, they have to earn money, of course. And we developed that according jobs where we've identified that people with low literacy skills are working in. So it's also not that everyone in these jobs has a low literacy, but there are certain numbers of people in these jobs. These jobs are, for example, cleaning and janitors, although cleaning personnel is much higher, construction work, care workers, especially support care workers, not the professional care workers, not so much, but the support care workers mostly. Also, what did we add? There are some technical jobs where this is involved, especially when it comes to production, being in a production environment, in factory workers, especially where you just doing simple jobs. So we try to wrap this all up in jobs that have been identified being involved with low literacy people. So, and when I say, yeah, I have already tested here, then I can just enter my code, and with this code, this code is used to log me in. At this time, I don't have any code, so it's telling me like what can I do with this code. It's telling me I should write down this code, and it's also yeah, so it's also reading this code, and then I can enter this code, and while I'm entering this code, I can also yeah, I can read this code. For example, if I did something wrong, and if it was not correct, I can just try it again and see if it's correct this time. Okay, now it's correct. Yeah, so we try to aid even this process, because we have to assume on the one hand these people are maybe currently in a situation maybe at home, because they can also do that at home. It's not necessarily to be done in the courses, but even if they are in the courses, we don't want to have the teacher hassle with situations of simple authenticating. So we try to aid these processes, give the people the feeling that there's to some extent autonomous as much as possible. So when I've logged in, yeah, I can also install that because it's a PWA. I'll talk later about that. We have now 4 dimensions to choose from: reading, writing, understanding spoken words, and calculating. And because there is not the time to go through all of them, I will just I just talk about a little bit of them. When you click on one, there's also easy, medium, and hard for them too, and for them are even 5 levels, because it's the calculating is a little bit more complex in terms of how many competencies there are in these levels, in 5 levels. When I click on one of them, then I get also a summary about what I can. So I can click on them and then estimate if that's what I feel, what is good. Doesn't necessarily need to be the reality, but that's fine for now. So it says I can read short and easy words. And medium, for example, I can read longer words, easy sentences, and understand what they're about. And hard would be I can read whole texts, and I can find single information in these texts, for example. So this is like some kind of self-assessment, seeing if this is somehow matching with my skills. And when I'm starting, I'm going to start read easy, because I'm not sure what I can do. So I'm just starting with the easiest one. And when you see now we're starting, then there's, before going into the task, there is some kind of plot described. We have that's something even we didn't really develop, that was already developed by this whole Lea universe. What I told you, that it's part of these of the diagnostics folder that can also be used in pen and paper, and it is guiding you through the whole task with some kind of plot, giving you some kind of sense of the situation, but also trying to remove this feeling that it's a test situation, because feeling tested is something these people remember from school, and everything that remembers them from school is not good for them, because many of them dropped out of school, or they just passed their school exam just with the last bits of power, and many of them don't have good memories of school. So we don't want to raise these memories of school, and then we have this plot. And when we start this, then you always see that's mostly the same build-up structure. So you have some kind of input, some stimuli, and then you can read the stimuli. It's like the background. Okay, those 2 characters you've seen in on the screen before, they want to go to the kino, to the cinema, and they want to watch a movie. And then here below, these are always these boxes where you have to do some answers. And for reading, we mostly have multiple choice, because it's about reading what's going on here. And as you can see, it's only about words. So this is like the easiest level. And then you have to say like, yeah, so you should answer this question. Which movie is running on Thursday? And on Thursday is Otto is the movie. Okay. And when I click down here, and then I'm on the next page, but also my progress already moves forward. So we try to design it in a way that every interaction gives you a positive feeling to come along, to move forward. And even if it's just going to the next page. And when I'm click something here, this is also important to show you. That's more a technical aspect. When we take a look at the application storages, at our local storage, then there's something I've cached in the local storage, and that is on which page we are. And this is always anonymized, so you can't say which person was on which cache. Okay, you can combine it with the Meteor login token, but even this login token does not resolve to anything useful. In the end, it just resolves to some user code. And we cached on which page we are, and it's caching which, let's say, what of both I clicked here, because assume, okay, now somebody is refreshing the page. Oh my God, that would be so annoying if now everything is reset. And we are saving every state in the local storage cache until the task is completed, or this one unit is completed, and then you see there no gone. And then it's progressing to the next task, and now in this task it's also again about reading, but it's a different story at this time. So he's a support worker on her restaurant, and then it's about getting a new job. And so as you can see, when I enter that, then it's caching again what I entered, and then he wants to work as a cook, and then that's fine. So at this point, for example, now there are questions for if the sentence makes sense. So as you can see, there is no sound button here, because the people who are attending this test, they should read this and not get read by text to speech, because then the whole test would be broken, of course. For example, this sentence is asking, snow is falling in the office, and that's wrong. And an egg costs 10 euros, and that's wrong as well. The sun is set in the morning, that's right. And a year consists of 12 months, that's right as well. And I'm carrying the shoes around my neck, and I'm just supposedly saying it right, just because we later want to see in the evaluation if this can help me somehow. I go to work by bus, that's also right. And Leah's buying noodles and cooking them in the fridge, and that's obviously wrong. The car goes over the street and saves fuel, that's also wrong. Because the car is not, it's not walking over the street, that's not correct. And in the post office, you can order food and drinks, and that's also wrong. So that was just one of them. So, and then we progress. As you can see, we try to shuffle these tasks between the persons. So we don't have a plot following along in this in this unit set, but in other unit sets, there are sometimes plots also referencing to other plots in before. So you get some sense of these persons have some kind of character and doing something. And for example, these guys now are working in the on the machinery, and they don't get along. So that's what this text is here telling them. Okay, so now I'm doing a little bit faster, and then there are new characters, and then they doing some food, and they having a walk. I can also, if that would be all too boring for me, I could also now stop and go back to the overview. But I want to do the test, and because I'm participating in one of these courses right now, I'm of course participating in the test. And as you can see now, at the end of these units, you see now, oh, okay, this is not just a sentence anymore. This is even a little bit more. It's like it's some kind of small text. So it's getting a little bit harder with mixing certain competencies here. So we're not assessing only one level, but we try to mix and see what is coming up. Maybe this person is even better than she self-assessed. Mit dem Zeugnis bekommen. And so he was he was there. So now it's the last task, I think. They're cooking something again, and then okay. And now all the units are complete. And now I'm on this evaluation page. And on this evaluation page, I know it looks totally overwhelmed with full of these sound buttons, but we need to respect that maybe people could not read everything on that. However, you have some kind of alpha level now. One of these levels I just showed you in the presentation before, this is also broken down by these dimensions. So there are 5 alpha levels now for dimension reading, 5 levels for writing, 5 levels for understanding language, and 5 levels for mathematics. And based on what participants responded, we calculate actually a set of competencies. And if they reach a certain threshold, you can say this competency is fulfilled. And if we count together all these competencies that are required for an alpha level and they reach a certain threshold, then we can say this alpha level is also reached. And in our case, because now we did nearly everything wrong besides something, we can say it's fulfilled because our threshold is currently around 80% or something. We can say if you have 80% right, then we can assume that you can do that. And if you want to see what competencies are fulfilled, this is something that is more complex, and we from by default we hide it from the participants, but usually they can watch that, and they can, for example, print it out and later on use that sheet, for example, go to a course, say, look, I did that at home, and that's my diagnostic. And we can see, oh, okay, that's good. We don't need to start with reading easy. We can start with reading medium, or we do a diagnostic with you again in reading medium, see if you can also do reading hard. So that's a super easy way for the teachers to assess the level of competency for the attendees. So that's it for this application. We also have 2 more applications. As I told you, we have the learning app and we have the teacher dashboard, and these applications are still in progress, but I at least want to show you some nice screen designs we did. So for example, in the app, the structure will remain similar. We have certain job areas here, and this is important. With the private app, we want to focus very much on these job areas like care work, technical jobs, or jobs in the food environment. And all content there are even more focused on jobs. So also the wording there is focusing on what wording is part of the job. So they can actually not only learn for themselves, but they can already learn in context. And that's the point of the functional aspect. They can learn to function with skills in their job. And as you can see, we want to do this some kind of, having a map, a little bit Candy Crush like, having, for example, it shows the technical environment, then I have my map. And when I select one of these numbers, that's the unit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you can also see when you take a look at the circles around them, then you have your progress, how far you progressed in each. And then you can also select an area in these. And then you can do your tasks. And they are built similar as I already showed you, with some differences, of course, because in these tasks, we have immediate responses. Maybe you realize, some of you realized when I did the diagnostics, there were no responses if what I did was right or wrong. Because in the diagnostic environment, we don't want to do that. We just want to assess. It's like a test. We just don't want it to feel like a test so much. And Here, as you can see, it's a little bit more behavioristic. It's like, oh yeah, that was good, that was great, that was not so great. It was great, but it was not the right one. So we try to be, of course, very positive all the time, and try to enforce this positivity also in the end, like giving some trophies and points and diamonds and some of that stuff. So having some kind of gamification there. And the application is currently in progress, so we are not I don't have a prototype that I can show you right now, which is showing the screens. And the same goes for the teacher dashboard. So on the teacher dashboard, so we also have a prototype right now, but in the end, that's something you can it's easy to imagine. So you have your courses, and these courses have some attendees, and I, as a course owner, I can write down the names, because it will later be anonymized or deleted after the course. But to know who's who, I can write down the names and associate it with an ID, but it's not associated in the same database, for example, as the IDs are stored. So we ensure everything remains as anonymous as possible. I can have some overview of these courses. For example, when I click on this, yeah, I get an overview of my course, and that's the important thing. So here are dates, and on these dates, my participants did a diagnostic run, and then I can see, like, okay, for my 3 participants, I can see, oh, on this date they are 2 are in alpha level 1, 1 is in alpha level 2. On the next date, they learned something, and then on a later date they did again, and oh, 1 progressed already. Wow. And then at the later date they all progressed. So this is something we want to provide to the teachers. You can also see an overview of all these competencies. For example, yeah, that's one competency, and I can see, okay, overall it's on that level, and that's the individual level. And if I want to go on further on the individual level, I can go down here and see the competencies for each single person and see if this has improved, if it stagnates, or if it has even declined. And that's important for these teachers to effectively plan their next lessons, and because they have a big variety of people there with total different levels, and they need to make some kind of learning materials and lessons and all that stuff. And in order to be effective, they have to know on what level they are, where they're stagnating. Okay, when all people are stagnating, or many people stagnating on a certain competency, then it's a good candidate for the next lesson, for example. So this is about the teacher dashboard. That's also in development right now. And because everything is developed with Meteor, we're also now going a little bit into the technical topics, the architecture. And as you've seen, there are a few applications there. So our architecture is, in this case, some kind of distributed architecture. It's not a pure monolith, and it's also not a pure microservice architecture. So it grew a little bit naturally, but also, of course, with some designs and planning in head. But for example, I did not want to do a full microservice architecture just because the sake of it. There was a discussion yesterday in one of the Hangouts about microservices. Some of you may laugh right now who joined. Actually, I can show you a little bit like what is what and who's who. So we have some kind of editor place where the core team is editing the material. We have the app where the target group is learning. We have the O2 diagnostic app where the target group is tested. We have the teacher app where the teachers are doing the management. So how they are interconnected right now, that's, as you can see, a little bit more complex. I tried to visualize in a different way, but it didn't work out, so I did a star. And we have these applications, as you can see, there is something called content, and that's a standalone service that is not doing nothing besides storing content data. All these units we work through, and the images there, and their definitions of correct responses and evaluation, that's stored on a content server. So because then the content server does nothing but storing this and providing them. So I did it mostly due to scalability, because maybe we will get into some scaling issues, and then I thought it would be good to have all the static content on a single instance or a cluster of instances that do nothing but serving the content. I just thought that was a decision for easy scaling, and it works out quite well. We have a editor, and this editor, and that's now a thing. This editor is mostly only there. It has no own server environment besides, I think, a collection for settings. The rest is just being there for other applications to register and telling like, hey, I'm an application, here is my authentication, and you can edit this or that collection. So we don't have an editing inside these applications themselves, but always using this editor. But because we have users that need to be authenticated on this editor and on these applications, we also need to have a custom account server. And who joined the Impact conference last year knows that I did a talk about this last year with the custom OAuth server, and that's basically the core of this account server, providing a login for the team members across these applications, and allowing us to work to work on collections of these applications as this user without the requirement to register on each application. So that's the architecture right now. And the applications themselves are monolith. So classic monolithic application. We have some additional services like this account server or this content server. I wouldn't say they are like microservices. I think it's a little bit beyond micro, but it's still rather service. They don't hold any domain entities in that. They just provide in a service way. Yeah, as I said, it's not a real microservice architecture, so it's a mix. It's what we came up with and what's working. For this service discovery, again, or it's called service discovery, I would say it's like application registration. We have a package called Leo Online Service Registry, and these applications can register there. And when the backend or the editor is starting, it's creating a DDP connection to these applications and asking like, hey, can you give me your authentication, and can we make a handshake authentication, and also can you give me your configuration of what I can access from you? And then it's giving some configuration like, hey, these are the methods. So it's a little bit like service discovery. Yeah, so hey, here are the methods. That's the name of the collections. That's what you can do with them, CRUD or I don't know, additional methods. And then, yeah, it's oh yeah, and if there are special form types, and then that's basically it. I can show you that. So when I'm here, for example, as you can see, there are two applications registered right now, Autolayer and the content server. And on Autolayer, I can have also some insights into the logging or some errors that I logged or accounts. For example, if we have a lot of demo accounts we give out, so we just want to clean up the database from demo accounts. Everything that's a demo account is flagged. So if we want to have our database clean, we can sort out all these demo accounts. And in the content, there's this whole model put into collections with their own dependencies to each other. For example, when I'm opening a unit set, as you can see, are also links here. That's because in this service configuration, the application can not only define which collections there are, but it can also define on a field level which dependencies there are. For example, a unit set has a dimension as a dependency. And as you see, these dimensions that are reading, writing, language, and mathematics, but these dimensions, they are not fixed. That's also something we came up, we can write down here. So they are also, it's a little bit like a content management system level, what we're doing here. And as you can see, so I can also click on that and see, okay, that's this one. And then there are basic things like having a search, doing some pagination. And then when I take a look into units, that's the ones you saw when we were doing the test in these units. That's actually these here. And there are a little bit more than you've seen, of course. And I would like to show you some more, because there are also, like, for example, mathematics, there are some written calculations. There are also sometimes multiple choices involved, but there's also, we also have a lot of writing. Just let me take a look on writing. Yeah, for example, here. So writing full sentences, even with special characters. Or we have complex text. We can get the full text read, and then you have to write down these words here. And that's basically like no, you can write down anything here. So it's we have some maximum of stuff. And when I go into this, that's also an important thing. When I go into this and I'm working on these texts, for example, then I can open that here. And then we have some kind of custom syntax for these text fields. And as an editor, I can also write down the scoring entries using some regular expressions. For example, if I want to check if the sentence was right, ich war bei der Marine. So I was at the Marines. And then you see, oh, there's something wrong. That's because the first character needs to be uppercase. And then I need to check. And then I was. And now I see it, everything correct. So it's also for the editors important to see that when they're doing, especially on a regular expressions level, it's very important to see that what people enter, that there are no false positives and no false negatives, because that would be total disaster in such a competency model. So we need to be very careful, and people, and they need to test if these regular expressions actually match what you type in. And there are definitely uncertainties and unknowns. In the future, we want to do some try using some technique where we generate possible patterns out of the regular expression in order to have more automation here for the testing. So that was about that. Authentication, I talked about with the OAuth2 server. We also provided all of this OAuth2 server accounts, packages for DTP connections. All you need is there. And we have a complete we have the complete suite for this authentication. We have a core lib and a UI lib for the shared code that all need. I know microservice advocates would say now, oh my God, that introduces coupling. And I would agree, it would introduce some kind of coupling, but we don't do self-contained standalone microservices here. And I also don't like duplicate code when this is just really common code. So I think that's fine here. I don't see any issue with that. We have a lot of factory libraries for collections, methods, file collections, and gridfs. So if you're one who's using Austria Files collection and wants to connect gridfs, we have a package for that does everything out of the box, even 206 response streaming, everything is there. No need to hassle around with that stuff. That's actually really brutal to implement correctly, and it took lots of time. We have also for publications and even for web app routes. So if you want to have some kind of express-like routes defined just by static definition objects, throwing into this factory and you create your web app routes. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. And the last one, that's also I want to ask anybody who is interested in this field. All the applications are AGPL licensed, so it's all free. The packages are all MIT, and we have this GitHub organization, GitHub Leo Online, and we have many packages you can check out here. So all these packages are talked about, the OAuth server and all the accounts packages that are related to that. Also the DDP login packages and the factories here. So for example, this grid factory, what I talked about. This is a full packages. Oh yeah, there's also something to do right now. So as you see, there's a lot of stuff to do. And if anybody has interest in developing and supporting us developing Germany's literacy, then I would really appreciate that. Also note that the whole system is designed in a way that we try to do it totally language agnostic. So it's all just depending on the content and some basic translations for the application, but all the content is whatever you want to do with it. And you could set up this whole system for another language. And when you come up with a good competency model, so this is always the problem, you need a valid model, but just assume you have another language and you come up with this model. Maybe one day this could be also just cloned and provided, for example, for English or for any other language. So that's from my end. So I have also a few Q&A. If anybody has any questions, I will take a look into the chat here. And oh, there's already something. Oh yeah. So any questions? Anything you want to know? Some technical aspects or anything? Okay, I'm checking the impact page. Give me a second, but if there is nothing, then I really thank you all for participating, and I hope you enjoyed, and I hope there will be someday this will be in the news and you're picking this up, then you can remember this talk that you were the first ones in the media community hearing about this. Okay, see you